The Fugitive is an American drama series created by Roy Huggins. It was produced by QM Productions and United Artists Television. It aired on ABC from 1963 to 1967. David Janssen stars as Richard Kimball, a physician who is falsely convicted of his wife's murder and sentenced to receive the death penalty. En route to death row, Kimball's train derails over a switch, allowing him to escape and begin a cross-country search for the real killer, a one-armed man. At the same time, Dr. Kimball is hounded by the authorities, most notably by Police Lieutenant Philip Gerard. The Fugitive aired for 4 seasons, and a total of 120 51-minute episodes were produced. The first 3 seasons were filmed in black and white, the final season was in color. The Fugitive was nominated for 5 Emmy Awards and won the Emmy for Outstanding Dramatic Series in 1966. In 2002, it was ranked No. 36 on TV Guide's 50 Greatest TV Shows of All Time. TV Guide named The One-Armed Man No. 5 in their 2013 list of the 60 nastiest villains of all time. Premise. The series' premise was set up in the opening narration, but the full details about the crime were not offered in the pilot episode, which started with Kimball having been on the run for 6 months, being on the way to the death house when the train crash happened, after 18 months in prison, having exhausted all appeals. In the series' first season, the premise was summarized in the opening title sequence of the pilot episode as follows. Name: Richard Kimball. Profession: Doctor of Medicine. Destination: Death Row, State Prison. Richard Kimball has been tried and convicted for the murder of his wife, but laws are made by men, carried out by men, and men are imperfect. Richard Kimball is innocent. Proved guilty. What Richard Kimball could not prove was that moments before discovering his wife's body, he encountered a man running from the vicinity of his home. A man with one arm. A man who has not yet been found. Richard Kimball ponders his fate as he looks at the world for the last time, and sees only darkness. But in that darkness, fate moves its huge hand. This title sequence was shortened for the remainder of the first season as follows. The name: Dr. Richard Kimball. The destination: Death Row, State Prison. The irony: Richard Kimball is innocent. Proved guilty. What Richard Kimball could not prove was that moments before discovering his murdered wife's body, he saw a one-armed man running from the vicinity of his home. Richard Kimball ponders his fate as he looks at the world for the last time, and sees only darkness. But in that darkness, fate moves its huge hand. The main title narration, as read by William Conrad, was changed for the first episode of the second season on through the last episode of the series. The Fugitive, a QM production, starring David Janssen as Dr. Richard Kimball, an innocent victim of blind justice, falsely convicted for the murder of his wife, reprieved by fate when a train wreck freed him en route to the death house. Freed him to hide in lonely desperation, to change his identity, to toil at many jobs. Freed him to search for a one-armed man he saw leave the scene of the crime. Freed him to run before the relentless pursuit of the police lieutenant obsessed with his capture. It was not until episode 14, The Girl from Little Egypt, that viewers were offered the full details of Richard Kimball's plight. A series of flashbacks reveals the fateful night of Helen Kimball's death, and for the first time offers a glimpse of the one-armed man. Inspirations and influence. The series was conceived by Roy Huggins and produced by Quinn Martin. It is popularly believed that the series was based in part on the real-life story of Sam Shepard, an Ohio doctor accused of murdering his wife. Although convicted and imprisoned, Shepard claimed that his wife had been murdered by a bushy-haired man. Shepard's brothers hired F. Lee Bailey to appeal the conviction. Bailey defended Shepard and won an acquittal in the second trial. Huggins denied basing the series on Shepard, though the show's music supervisor, Ken Wilhoit, was married to Susan Hayes. who had had an intimate relationship with Shepard prior to the murder and testified during the first trial in 1954. The show presents a popular plot device of an innocent man on the run from the police for a murder he did not commit while simultaneously pursuing the real killer. It had its antecedents in the Alfred Hitchcock movies The 39 Steps, Saboteur, and North by Northwest. The theme of a doctor in hiding for committing a major crime had also been depicted by James Stewart as the mysterious Buttons the Clown in The Greatest Show on Earth. Writer David Goodish claimed that the series was inspired by his 1946 novel Dark Passage, about a man who escapes from prison after being wrongfully convicted of killing his wife. Goodish's litigation over the issue continued for some time after his 1967 death. It has also been speculated that another part of the plot device of a fugitive living a life on the run from the authorities was loosely inspired by Victor Hugo's 1862 novel Les Miserables, and that the Richard Kimball character was inspired by the novel's protagonist, Jean Valjean, an ex-convict living a life as a fugitive and having numerous aliases as well as helping people around him. The character of L.T. Gerard, who hounds Kimball throughout the series, is also loosely inspired by a character from the same novel, a relentless police inspector named Javert, who is obsessed with capturing the fugitive. Other shows, such as Route 66, had employed the same anthology-like premise of wanderers finding adventure in each new place they came to. The Fugitive, however, answered two questions that had bedeviled many similar series. Why doesn't the protagonist settle down somewhere? And, why is the protagonist trying to solve these problems himself instead of calling in the police? Casting a doctor as the protagonist also provided the series a wider range of entry into local stories, as Kimball's medical knowledge would allow him alone to recognize essential elements of the episode, and the commonplace doctor's ethic would naturally lead him into dangerous situations. Several television series have imitated the formula of characters on the run being chased by the authorities who wanted to capture him and compelled to help others along the way, with the twists being mostly in the nature of the fugitives. A German shepherd dog, a scientist with a monstrous alter ego, a group of ex-US Army Special Forces accused of a war crime they committed under orders, a husband and wife, a boy afflicted with lycanthropy, a former police officer, and a reinstated detective. Additional shows with a similar premise that may be of interest to fans of the Fugitive TV series also include Kung Fu, starring David Carradine and Zatoichi, the Blind Swordsman, Zatoichi being a Japanese production. Both series also feature a protagonist on the run, who while battling their adversaries also help out those in need. The 2002 film adaptation of Minority Report turns the same concept on its head. A police officer is accused of a future murder and must figure out why his future shows this happening, becoming a fugitive in the process. The U.S. Marshal initially tasked with bringing him in, ultimately uncovers the fact he is being framed due to corruption at the highest levels. The Fugitive was nominated for 5 Emmy Awards and won the Emmy for Outstanding Dramatic Series in 1966. In 2002, it was ranked No. 36 on TV Guide's 50 Greatest TV Shows of All Time. TV Guide named The One-Armed Man No. 5 in their 2013 list of the 60 nastiest villains of all time. The show also came away with other honors. In 1965, Alan Armoth, the producer and head writer of the series, received an Edgar Award from the Mystery Writers of America for his work.